A warm welcome to the Thursday edition of Our City COVID-19 show, giving you the latest updates from home and abroad. I am Vicky McCullum. These are your headlines for today. President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa is facing two epidemics, COVID-19 and gender-based violence. Restaurants, hotels, casinos and salons are among the sectors that can reopen under the advanced Level 3 lockdown. Santaco in the Western Cape is currently meeting to determine next week's taxi fare increase. It is day 84 of the lockdown and the current number of confirmed COVID-19 cases nationally is 80,412. 44,331 people have recovered, whilst 1,674 have died. The Western Cape has 46,555 confirmed cases, with 31,824 recoveries and 1,243 deaths. South Africa is fighting not just the coronavirus pandemic, but an epidemic of gender-based violence too. These inhumane acts against women and children claim more lives daily. Our City News reporter Stephanie Pete has more.
There has been a significant increase in crimes against women and children this past few weeks. No less than 21 citizens have fallen victim to senseless murders. The spate of crimes has negatively and significantly impacted South Africa as a nation. President Cyril Ramaphosa last night in his address spoke about both epidemics and also acknowledged the victims of gender-based violence by name.
It is with the heaviest of hearts that I stand before the women and the girls of South Africa this evening to talk about another pandemic that is raging in our country. The killing of women and children by the men of our country. As a man, as a husband, and as a father to daughters, I am appalled at what is no less than a war that is being waged against the women and the children of our country. At a time when the coronavirus pandemic has left us all feeling vulnerable and uncertain, violence is being unleashed on the women and children of our country with a brutality that defies any form of comprehension. The women of our country are being raped, they are being killed by men. These rapists and killers walk amongst us. They are in our communities. They are fathers, they are brothers, they are our sons and our friends. They are violent men with utterly no regard for the sanctity of human life. Over the past few weeks, no fewer than 21 women and children have been murdered. Their killers thought they could silence them. But we will not forget them, and we will speak for them where they themselves cannot. We will speak for Tsegofatso Pule, Naledi Pangindao, Nompumelelo Chaka, Nomfazi Gabata, Nwabisa Nkwadela, Alicia Korchi, and Lindelwa Penny. All of them are young women, or were young women, who were killed by men. We will speak for the 89-year-old grandmother who was killed in an old age home in Queenstown. The 79-year-old grandmother who was killed in Brakpan in Gauteng, and the elderly woman who was raped in KwaShwayimani in KwaZulu-Natal. We will speak for the innocent souls of Tshegofaso Pule's unborn daughter, who had already been given a name. We will also speak for 6-year-old Renacia Kochi and the 6-year-old child found dead in the veld in KwaZulu-Natal. These women are just not statistics. They have names, and they have families, and they have friends. This evening, our hearts, our thoughts, and our prayers are with them.
Meanwhile, Sonke Gender Justice has thanked President Ramaphosa for expressing his position on gender-based violence. But the activist organization stressed the fight against GBV must continue. We spoke to Tulani Velanai, Regional Senior Trainer on Children's Rights and Positive Parenting, for more.
Firstly, I would like to say thank you to the President for expressing his own position about gender-based violence. But also on the other side, the President did mention that they've got resources for combating gender-based violence. But in honest speaking, we have got less access to these resources. I remember, I think 5 years back, we've been doing so many protests in Western Cape, trying to influence, actually in South Africa, particularly Western Cape, trying to influence the government to have a clear guidelines on how they are going to combat gender-based violence prevention. So it's not easy for us to access the resources in terms of getting the funds from the government to support us. It's not easy because SONG is one of the organizations that is saying to people, you are accountable of what you are saying to the community. So in other situations, we might not have a good relationship with the government because we are saying they are accountable to people. So in other situations, we are not really that much friends to the government. So it's not easy for us to access those funds. But we as Songi will still remain on our position to say, whether you're a government person or you're not a person, gender-based violence is a violence that cannot be excused. We cannot say, I did it because I was hungry. A gender-based violence is a gender-based violence. So it's not easy for us to access the funds. And we're looking forward for the President to make sure that all the NGOs and non-government organizations, they do have access to the resources that the government is sending to combat the gender-based violence. Although it's not easy.
Nigeria has also reported a spike in gender-based violence since the start of its lockdown. This has resulted in mass protest action across the country. This report was filed by Voice of America.
In January 2015, Ifunanya Glory was on her way back from work when she says her neighbor lured her into his house. She struggled to break free as he dragged, beat, and eventually raped her.
So we continued the dragging. I think his TV was broken because we dragged. They started blowing me, giving me blow on my legs and everything. And at the end of the day, I couldn't just fight him again. He had his way. I remember him telling me, even God cannot save you from my hands. The name of God of Jacob protects me.
Ifunanya's effort to get justice for her rapist was in vain. She comes to this church every week to find solace, but says she still lives with the trauma.
If there's a way I can strangle that guy, I will have strangled. If there's a way something I could do to take him out of the earth, I would have done. But there was nothing I could do then, because then I was also financially handicapped.
The United Nations estimates 1 in 4 girls in Nigeria experience sexual violence before the age of 18. But Nigeria is seeing a new wave of rape offenses and sexual violence against women, up to 3 times more since the coronavirus pandemic started, according to a volunteer aid group, the Domestic and Sexual Violence Team. Hundreds of protesters and human rights campaigners who marched around the police headquarters in Abuja demanded justice for victims. On social media, Hashtags like End Rape, No Means No, and Justice for Rape Victims continue to trend upward.
One of those conclusions that we are making now is the fact that the lockdown, of course, has necessitated perpetrators to be within the same confine, within the same space as the survivors, as the people who are being raped, with the women and the girls. So the women and the girls are helpless. The perpetrator also knows that the women and girls are helpless at this time.
Critics say Nigeria has been slow to respond to the problem in the past, but now authorities are deploying special investigative teams on gender violence to each state in the country.
That every one of us have got a sister. We've got a woman in our life. We've got a daughter and we've got a mother. And we will not want any of them to be sexually abused, to be sexually molested, or to be raped. Therefore, we are together with you in the quest for a rape-free Nigeria.
Last year, Nigerian authorities launched the country's first register of sex offenders to punish perpetrators. More recently, Nigeria Governors Forum declared a state of emergency on rape and other forms of sexual violence against women and children in all 36 states of the country. This gives hope to victims like Ifunanya and activists across Nigeria who demand stricter measures for sex offenders. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
Restaurants, cinemas and hair salons are among the businesses that will be allowed to reopen under Advanced Level 3. President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation last night and announced an easing of some restrictions. Many salons have been closed since the start of lockdown in a bid to curb the spread of COVID-19. Our reporter Zanele Mvana spoke to one salon owner to hear her thoughts on the announcement.
Hair and beauty salons had to close during the lockdown as the South African government trying to curb and flatten the curve of coronavirus. But for this salon owner and hairstylist, the lockdown has had a financial constraint on her business.
Business is very bad, extremely bad. I don't know how I can compare it to, but it is bad. It's like it's demolishing. Like these things have not been existing. That's how I can say. It is really bad, very bad. It's affecting us badly. Eating, feeding, school fees, it's affecting us badly. I wish they can just tell us when exactly we start, because our people also can't wait to look good, because there is no Facebook posts these days. People don't look nice, they're not smart, they're just wondering. Whoever wants to do nails, hair, they're just in corners hiding. We want it to be official again, and people are free, set free to look smart, to be presentable wherever they're going to.
So Susan, tell us, how will social distancing be maintained in the salon once you guys are operating?
Okay, once the salons are allowed to open freely, we planned on basically appointments. We're trying hard to tell our customers to book for appointments first of all, and not to come with friends or relatives or so that whoever comes is strictly alone. And then we advise them to tell us what styles or what are they going to do in the shop, so that we know exactly, is it going to be a long job or a short job, so that we plan on how they are going to sit in the shop. As you can see, we already tried to put in some chairs are off. Instead of 5 people that have been sitting, we sit 2 to 3 people. And we regulate on how many people are coming in, and the staff also can't be the same it used to be. We're going to be operating on in shifts. 3 people today, 3 people the other day, every time like that, and that means 3 customers, for example, on the side of the salon a day.
Like what everyone else says, that the lockdown has affected us much more. Like you know, as a hairstylist, this is the only job that I do on a daily basis. I need to work in people's hair, I need to make wigs, I need to do what. So I'm supposed to be in a salon and work and provide for myself. And then if I'm not working in a salon or if I'm not doing anything, then that means there's no income that I'm generating. You understand it? So it has really affected me because I had to pay rent, I had to pay some bills, and then there's no income that's coming in. For me, it's a bit like a challenging thing to do here. With the way the situation is now, I cannot say that because it's also my responsibility. Like at the end of the day, despite that I'm making money, I also need to protect lives. I also need to protect myself from the disease. But because this disease is real, we might be talking, we might be what, because we haven't seen people, or it's not in us that we are working or we're walking around. So it's really, really like, this thing is really serious. It's killing people, and we've seen it here in South Africa. So it's also my responsibility like, to make sure that I'm always safe, and also people that I'm working on, they are safe enough. When I heard the news that we are gonna be allowed to come back to work, I was really so very happy. And then you also know meeting those old clients, and then you need to talk how I've been during lockdown and whatever. Yeah, it's really sad.
We were surviving on our savings. God helped us to be, you know, everyone knows what to do to keep something, but savings helped so long, but we've chowed all our savings because we're still paying school fees, no matter whether yes or no, we still pay, and other bills as well.
Lifting of restrictions comes with rules, and the salon owner says that they'll have to take precautionary measures to ensure that one does not contract the virus. For our City News, I'm Zanele Mvana, Cape Town.
With the increase in crime, road accidents and gender-based violence since the ban on alcohol was lifted at the beginning of June, President Cyril Ramaphosa has encouraged citizens to drink responsibly.
We need to examine the effect of alcohol abuse, not only on levels of violence, but also on road accidents and reckless behavior. We need to encourage responsible drinking, especially among young people. We need to be tough on liquor outlets that violate the terms of their licenses and who sell alcohol to those who are underage. But we will also need to look at further, more drastic measures to curb the abuse of alcohol. Many people and many leaders in our society continue to complain about our people's behavior after abusing alcohol.
We're back after the break with all your latest news from the city, province, and around the world. Welcome back. You're still watching the Thursday edition of the Our City COVID-19 show on Cape Town TV. Taxi fares are due to increase come the 1st of July, but in the Western Cape, the exact increase has not yet been decided. Taxi associations are locked in a meeting this afternoon to decide on just how much they'll be increasing tariffs. They plan to make an announcement by the end of this week. During lockdown, taxis have only been allowed to carry 70% of their usual commuter load. This resulted in less profit per trip. Meanwhile, Santiago in Gauteng has announced fares would go up by a minimum of R7 from the 1st of July. Cape Peninsula University of Technology students have claimed the university failed to tell them a residence on the Bellville campus had been turned into a coronavirus quarantine site. Our City News reporter Octavia Ndlovu filed this report.
Peninsula University of Technology residence located in the Bellville campus has been turned into a COVID-19 quarantine site. Students have expressed their frustration, saying the university did not communicate them about this move and it had put their lives at risk.
President ekubizwa ngokubana iHeroes House president apho kuhlala student khona apha kuwenziwe khona ifacility ye-quarantining and isolation pha landa uyibonayo pha i-entrance yalapha leyana, and there is also another entrance on this side le entrance esibini le kweli cala ile bayisebenzisayo ngokokutsho kwabo bona basebenzisa le entrance kodwa namhlanje xa benime apha ndibone umuntu bezisa ukutya apha ezisela umuntu lo isolatiweyo apha ndibone engena to le entrance nathi singena kuyo sizi-students. Now yonke le nto lena ifaka ubomi bethu ebungciphekweni futhi according to i-guidelines ze-COVID-19 azifolowishwanga ngokokwenzeka olu hlobo kwenziwe ngalo apha ngoba according kweza guidelines eziyana kufanele uba kukho i-security 24/7 to i-facility, that is i-facility yo-isolation ne-quarantining facility, but apha akwenziwanga nenye yazo futhi i-students bezingazi ngale nto le bayenzi kuza kwenziwa into enjena erezini yabo le bahlala kuyo bayazi ngoku loo nto le uba kukho into enjengalena. Now i-trauma eyenziwe yile nto to i-student ine-impact ezawuzenza kwi-students psychologically, emotionally, like ungayibona loo nto leyo izawuthi kwenza i-depression eninji already abantu bayoyika.
Be irresponsible for CPUT not to have a quarantine site on campus. That's the word from the university's spokesperson, Lauren Kansley, in response to the students' complaint. Kansley said CPUT had over 40,000 staff and learners on campus.
The Congress of South African Students wants mass testing at schools and has proposed that schools be closed following news that a number of schools in the Western Cape have confirmed COVID-19 cases. Ayanda Nabe spoke to Sinovuyo Makani from the COSAS National Task Team for more on this.
Today we want to talk to you about the lockdown that COSAS is proposing. Can you please take us through that very briefly?
All right. So we currently know the situation we're facing at our institutions, secondary, high school, and also in primary, where the Department of Basic Education said that scholars in matric and in grade 7s will indeed go back to school. We do know that COSAS is the organization that said that schools can reopen as long as PPEs are produced, are sent to the schools, and also the schools are properly sanitized. But we soon came into terms that does just not cut it. So now what we're demanding is for mass testing of learners, because at the end of the day, our concern is number one, the learners, but not only that, once they go home, they're going to their parents that are living with illnesses like diabetes. So that is our concerns, and also the educators.
So tell me this, so you are suggesting that there must be mass testing. Is that what you're saying? But
Yeah.
but once there's testing, the pupils or the learners, they go home again, and they come back tomorrow after being tested, and one never knows what they could have contracted from people that have been at work, at home, from home, or even on the way to school and from school. What then happens? I'm trying to understand the logic of, or the reason, or maybe the logic, yes, of you insisting that they be tested at the school before the academic year consumed.
So one thing is for sure, the reason why we want the mass testing to happen is for early detection of the virus, because we do know that there are learners that are asymptomatic. In fact, I attend Rhodes High School, there were 2 educators that tested positive for coronavirus. Now, we do know that learners that are asymptomatic, that's where they take the temperature, that simply won't cut it. So when there is that early detection of the virus, they can then get the necessary medical attention. So we reduce the spike of the spread of COVID-19.
You know, when we alerted our viewers on our social media platforms that this is the conversation we'll be having, there have been a lot of queries that are coming through to say that, you know, people are wondering why did we have to open in June? I mean, the winter season at all. What was the urgency in doing that? Because we're late already. You know, I mean, they've missed quite a bit already, and we'd rather save lives than save an academic year. And I mean, we've heard another union that was quite vocal to say, you know, the state of readiness should not depend on availability of PPE, but rather on the statistics that will be dropping in terms of the infection rate. So what is your view, you know? Why did we open in June? Is this something that you were consulted on as COSAS? Because if you are, I have a concern. Why are you then coming today to say let's close down?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, FOSAS, as long as other unions, is one of the organizations that said in order for a school to reopen, they must have the necessary PPEs and they must be sanitized. But then what we soon learned is that just having PPEs and sanitizing school does not cut it. Hence, we need to put more stringent measures in order to reduce the infection rate and reduce the spike.
So what has been the response of government when you proposed this lockdown? One would assume that you have at least advised them and they must have responded to your call. What has been their response?
So we've mentioned to them that as the Congress of South African Students, we will not stop shutting down schools until our demands are met. Fortunately, the Western Cape Education Department agreed to meet us. We'll be meeting them tomorrow at around 9 p.m. in order to discuss these plans that we have. And if they are not met, we'll continue shutting down schools until something is done.
Okay, so you are saying that on your position you will not compromise. You insist on this. When is this lockdown scheduled to begin?
Well, it started on Monday. We shut down Rhodes High School, went at surrounding schools. We went also to Kailicha. Today I was unfortunately unable to make it as I was catching up on schoolwork, but shut down schools in Strand, Lugombos and the surrounding schools, Delft and also in Kailicha. So we have no intention of slowing down until those demands are met.
So which are your targeted provinces? Is it all provinces, selected provinces where the infection rate is high? I'm not sure. Can you please take us through that?
So we strategically chose the provinces that are hotspots of this coronavirus. So obviously the Western Cape, Gauteng province, Eastern Cape, the Northern Cape, that is primarily where the shutdown will be, and also the regions that mostly affected by this COVID-19.
I trust that government will listen to you. The parents are there to support you and everyone else who supports COSAS. Thank you to them on their behalf. And of course, we will meet again next time. From me, it's goodbye. Snovuyo, goodbye and thank you very much for joining us.
We go to news from further afield now, and in Colombia, the informal sector is struggling as it deals with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
This city of 4 million people normally hums with the sound of motorcycles, dense street markets, and music. But in March, when the country went into a lockdown, those sounds petered out. And so did work for Colombians like Daniel Arango Aguirre. Arango once walked the streets of the city's tourist area selling art, but then came the lockdown. Now he rides his motorcycle around upper-class neighborhoods selling board games and puzzles to families in quarantine.
Before, you never thought you'd be selling this. The man who once sold avocados is now selling these games. He's a friend in Medellin. He once sold avocados on the street, and now what does he do? Load his cart up with board games, and he goes to sell them because with the lockdown, you have to search for what makes more money and sells faster.
It's a dilemma across Latin America as unemployment skyrockets and informal work has dropped off. In Colombian cities, about half the workforce is informal, and that number is even higher in rural areas. For many, it's adapt or go hungry. Some play music, beg on street corners, or drive around selling street food like tamales and mazamorra, a corn drink popular in Colombia. But as Latin America becomes an epicenter of the pandemic, the risk of infection for these workers becomes even more real. Pedro Brito sells avocados on his bike after he lost his job cooking at a Chinese fast food restaurant. He's a Venezuelan migrant among 5 million who have fled their collapsing country. Like Arango, he said he leaves his home every day in fear.
The worst thing would be if my family got sick in this contagion, because I'm here with my cousin and friends, and they too sell avocado. We try to protect ourselves the best we can, but it would be very hard if one of us got infected. And we live together, so then all three or all of us who live here get infected. And here, we don't even have insurance. We don't have anything.
Colombia is slowly loosening up quarantine restrictions in the hope of averting an economic crisis. But as more people emerge from their homes, cases are on a steady uptick. As cases continue to rise, analysts expect inequality to worsen in Latin America. One analyst called the pandemic an added blow to informal workers who are already among the region's most vulnerable. With not many options, disinfectant and masks are their best hope. Megan Janetsky for VOA News, Medellin, Colombia.
That's all on the news front, but when we come back, Steph will have the latest on what's trending on social media.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Our City COVID-19 show. I am Stephanie Pitt. We posted a question on our Facebook page asking your views on President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech on Wednesday night. Here are some of your comments. Speech Chief Van der Lake says, what about travel restrictions? One should be free to travel within the province to see family and friends at least. Much more important than opening cinemas. Neville Watson said, it will always be a gamble between the virus and the economy. People need to learn how to earn a living and be responsible. Liz D. Smith says, he is a liar, a thief. This is just morsels tossed out while they try to steal our country. Diane Yvonne McNain says, I don't agree with cinemas and theaters being open as well as restaurants. If these are allowed, then why not open all airlines? Verna Vessel says, won't be going to cinemas and restaurants soon. While Charlene van der Post says, so why not open Parliament? The president's speech was met with skepticism and confusion, with some people asking about travel restrictions, why others are wary about opening restaurants and cinemas. Interestingly, some asked why Parliament was not physically reopening. With the coronavirus causing a global economic crisis, South Africa is now easing restrictions on other economic activities in effort to start rebooting the economy. Now let's take a look at the popular hashtags on Twitter today. Hashtag President Ramaphosa. The nation appreciates the president's words on gender-based violence, but now we want action, real decisive action. Hashtag Level 3 restrictions. That restrictions are easing up on hairdressing and salons and restaurants. Even part of tourism has made people happy. But they ask, is this not level 2 in disguise? Hashtag Diaries. The nation is unimpressed with Tyrese Gibson accusing him of reverse racism after an offensive tweet. We'd like to know your views on issues during this pandemic, so we'll be posting questions on our Facebook page daily, Our City CT. You can also follow us on Twitter at Our City CT. That's it from me, Stephanie Pitt. Please stay with us. After the ad break, Vicky McCullum will be giving you information on resources and places of safety you can use during this period. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still tuned to Our City, the COVID show on Cape Town TV, channel 263. Here's a recap of today's headlines. President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa is facing two epidemics, COVID-19 and gender-based violence. Restaurants, hotels, casinos and salons are among the sectors that can reopen under an advanced level 3 lockdown. Santaco in the Western Cape is currently meeting to determine next week's taxi fare increase. If you are in need of assistance of any kind, here are some organizations helping communities stay safe during this period. That's it from Our City COVID-19 news show, but we will continue giving you the latest news on what's happening in Cape Town on our Facebook page at Our City CT and on Twitter at Our City CT. You can also get in touch with us via email, ourcity@capetowntv.org, or call us on 021 448 0448. We would like to pay tribute to all the technicians and pathologists in the National Health Laboratory Services and private laboratories, as well as all the staff who work in the most risky environments 24 hours a day to churn out these results. From me, Vicky McCullum, and the Our City News crew, goodbye.